Hey traders, good afternoon. This is Christian from Hertz, and it is Wednesday, August 12th, and this is your end of day recap. So, theme of the day, I would say a little bit of a growth bounce today. SPX basically just about at all-time highs. Does it matter that we hit all-time highs or break out or so forth? I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me. I think you still have to kind of be in the right stocks, right? Unless you're just playing the indices. But I think really interesting that the value rotation kind of stopped a little bit today. So we've been talking about that a lot the last couple days, or yeah, at least the last few days, I would say. And one of the things, there's a lot to talk about in today's video, but I'll try to keep it a little bit shorter than yesterday. Yesterday's video was long because I went over a lot of examples, and I try to give, definitely some examples of like all the trades that I have on and so forth. And again, I really try to be, uh, you know, as transparent, right, with everything that we're doing, and give these real examples rather than what you see on Twitter is basically a lot of hypothetical stuff, right, or a lot of after the fact stuff, right. So I think from a viewer standpoint, to me, like I find it much more meaningful when somebody goes over a real example. So I hope you find the same. But I think one of the things that we just heard, like if you turned on the TV yesterday and put on Bloomberg or CNBC, they were talking a lot about the rotation. So sometimes you can kind of use that, keep that in the back of your mind. That, and I mean no disrespect to these companies, but sometimes when everybody's talking about that, it's already done, right? That rotation. Also, what I try to think about too with these rotations is too, it's a little bit of an adjustment, right? Were under owned the banks, and they're under owned some of the industrials and so forth. So it's a little bit of like a tweaking of models too, right? Everybody was severely long growth and tech or high growth, right? And at some point, people have to come in and take profits and put some money in other places. Now, the other thing that I talked about in yesterday's video was the more that people rotate out of growth and tech, the more it's going to make it attractive. When it comes down, then it brings out some of those dip buyers. So I think that's what we saw a little bit today. One of the things too that I stressed in yesterday's long video was to be patient with some of these things, because let's face it, like high growth, right? It is a little bit of the old stairs up and escalator down. And you just don't know, some of these things really will get hit for multiple days before they find a little bit of support. So that's my whole thing, and we talked about that a lot in the Q&A session. We do you can see right here on my spreadsheet. We do Q&A sessions Monday and Wednesday, and sometimes, like today, they turn out to be an hour, because I not only want to answer everybody's questions, but I want to give like as much context too. Oh, well, this chart is interesting because this, and what to kind of look for in the coming days. So I think my mic was down low. I'll have to check that. But yeah, I mean, these are things that you basically want to go through a little bit of a scenario analysis. Like, okay, what happens if it breaks this level of support? What are you going to do? Are you going to abandon the trade, or are you going to look to add more to the trade? Are you scaling in, or so there's a lot of things to kind of talk about. Let's just talk about the indices for a second, right? We talked about how yesterday there was what was known as a reversal day. It's funny that if you look, I think people really focus a lot on gaps or like outside days, that type of thing. And sure, you had that in the SPY yesterday. But if you look at S&P futures, which I tend to look at, I think more professional traders will look at S&P futures charts versus a SPY chart. And S&P futures are more, there's more continuous. So you look at one chart, right, and you say, oh geez, look at this red bar. it's an outside day, right? And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but we didn't really lose. The other thing that I believe I said was, we didn't lose any of the short-term moving averages, right? So if you go back and if you look at S&P futures, you could see it's a lot less dramatic. Like, okay, you got a red bar in here, and today, but no drop of the 5-period moving average. Which again, every one of these little lines that I have on my charts, they're for a reason for me, right? I don't want to go off tangent here and talk about what indicators you should have on your charts. It's basically whatever helps you, right? And if it doesn't help you anymore, then take it off your screen. But for me, the 5-period moving average just tells me something about the short-term trend, right? So yesterday we kind of tested it, but we didn't break it. So some interesting things. And then if we look at the Qs, right, which were the big thing yesterday, was, the first thing that I saw yesterday was that we filled this gap, right? Or if you want to look at NASDAQ futures, you could do that too. But we filled this gap, right, which is a good thing. People like to see these gaps filled. And the other thing is we came down to the bottom of value. Now, I didn't know based on that, because we closed on the lows, whether or not that support was going to hold, but it held really nice. Right, and this was the Qs were up 2.5% today. So yes, there was some dip buying in some things. Now, not everything, right? We'll go through a couple of the charts, but let's talk about Tesla first, because that, I think, was the name of the day. I'm not going to go into the split and all that stuff. I thought Josh Brown. I've been using the analogy of a pizza pie. Right, so it's the same. Your investment is a pizza pie, and you could slice it any way you want. Basically, you cut the pizza pie in more slices. It doesn't mean you have more value there, right? You actually need a bigger pizza pie, not more slices. Josh Brown on CNBC mentioned. I thought this was a great example too. You have $100. It doesn't matter if you have a $100 bill or if you have 10 tens. It's all the same. Now again, it's still right. That's the economics of it. There is the psychological factor of, these things get popular. It's just like Apple too announcing it, and that's something that I've known in my career. Like back in 1999 and 2000, they used to split these companies all the time, right? And they would like it, right? I mean, it would be perceived. So it's just one of those things that it's kind of a you kind of have to you shake your head at some of this stuff, but you also we're not in it to be right or wrong. We're in it to make money. So that said, Tesla went up today because it's perceived as a positive thing. Now, we talked about this name yesterday and about the value area was slim. So we kind of had a false breakdown, comes out with this announcement, and it blasts through. Hesitated, yesterday when this was announced in the after hours market, and didn't get into value till about 10 o'clock today. And then it just basically kept on going. So I had a trade on from last week that ended up working. I had mentioned in the room and on Twitter that, hey, this Tesla is setting up for a big move, right? And we could tell that a little bit. And it's not 100%, but when these value areas are this slim, it's kind of like the same concept as coiled, right? When something is coiled, the moving averages are all wrapped around one another, and usually a pretty decent move is coming. So we got that in Tesla and profited from it. So very nice. Here were my trades again. So the Tesla, which so I got out of this thing. And then I rolled the profits at the end of the day when it kind of dipped a little bit. So we'll see if this works. Again, short-term trade. I love trading. I think it's too risky to buy outright weekly calls. I just can't do that. It's to me it's too much like gambling. But I like the risk reward of putting on a weekly call spread position because the risk return, right? You don't have to outlay that much money, and if the name moves in your direction, you can get a nice double or triple, possibly triple if you really hold it all the way to expiration. So that was the name of the day. Besides the Qs, I think the chips were really interesting. So today, and I'll give you kind of the play-by-play. of some of the commentary. But I had said yesterday, where was yesterday? Somewhere in here. No, maybe I didn't. Maybe I don't have it. Well, I had mentioned that I think I must have put it on Twitter then, or for whatever reason I can't. Oh, here's yesterday. Right. So I was on the hunt for growth and yeah, for tech and growth names yesterday, but they didn't appeal to me. Like in the afternoon, obviously, I didn't see what I didn't get what I wanted to see basically yesterday, and I sat on my hands yesterday, and that worked out. I think pretty well, right? We've talked about. I've been talking about this a lot because I hope it helps newer traders who are just basically anytime they see a dip or just buying. But I think if you kind of be a little bit more patient, we talked a lot about this in the Q&A session today too, that the more nimble you are with taking off positions into strength and not getting, not putting on too many positions, especially on the option side, the more that you can capitalize on these dips, right? So we'll go through, a couple names here, but really, I was on the hunt. I got out of a lot of value names. I held a couple names. Starbucks, which I think held in there. I'm going to be watching Starbucks going forward, but I got out of Disney. Now, I may be like, cutting it short here because, again, I didn't play really any of the financials because I just don't have enough conviction to sit in a financials trade. Whoops, what happened there? Must have clicked on the wrong thing. But I think this is coming out of this. So yes, there's this VPOC up here, but I had an itchy trigger finger today. I had a little bit of a winning trade. I had to kind of trade around it a little bit, so it worked. It wasn't a huge winner, but that's fine. And then if you see what some of these financials did today, they turned back. I mean, in an up market, they were down today. So they did close off the lows. But, this is why I can't really, it's tough for me to get involved in the financials because I do view the financials are more like utilities these days. So they're just harder trades. And, there's a couple names that were interesting today. This TradeWeb. So again, I would rather trade like some smaller financials, something like a TradeWeb that is a little bit more techy, right? And MSCI is another one that I'm watching too. Now, this didn't close on the highs. I'm still watching it, but something like this is more appealing to me. The other name that I mentioned is ICE. I did not put this thing on. I had a $100 alert. I could have put this on, but I think this is a great name to watch for tomorrow. It's just doing something a little bit different. BlackRock is another name that I've got a position on, which didn't close on the highs, but it's just showing these names are showing a little bit more relative strength. So I feel good, and same thing with the airlines, right? If you look at the airlines, they were down today. So I don't know. Is that it? Is that all we're going to get for this bounce in some of the travel names? It might be. Because again, I wouldn't be surprised if they make another lower high, right? So again, it's not done, but this is a virgin point of control takeout. We also saw this on the 1 hour. And for me, that's a place to take profits. Not to say that the price can't get above these virgin point of controls, but their overhead supply. I think of them anyway as that way, as there's a little bit, there's supply there at the virgin point of controls. Okay, so what else? What else was really appealing today? So when I said that, so I was kind of coming around to the story. So one of the things that sometimes I am negative on option flow because I think there's an over importance that's stressed on Twitter with option activity, but it could really give you a kind of a heads up where people are buying. So this AMD. Notice how I traded this AMD today. So this was something like, hey, I'm looking for some momentum in a couple names that have been beaten down. AMD wasn't on the top of my list today, but once I saw that they were going after calls, And in this and a little bit in NVIDIA, we did see a big NVIDIA trade go up yesterday too that I verified this morning that increased open interest. I think they were the September calls. But, I didn't hesitate when I saw calls after the open, right at 9:34. And then it actually started to kind of come in a little bit on the 5 minute bar. So I bought some more, not this week's, but next week's calls. And, here was the first 5 minute bar in value, and it actually came out. And then once I saw it looking like it was going to reclaim it again, I was just basically looking for a move through value. And there were some good questions about this because then what I did was I took off the option position and put on a cash position, right? Put on a stock position. The reason why, and I've talked about this before, is you could use these things for different plays. Like options, you need a fast, aggressive move for options to work. So if you're in short dated calls, I can't sit in a weekly or short term option play for that long because I know how these things work. If they lose the momentum, the premium goes down like very quickly. So I'm very quick with taking profits, and 250, so this is fine for me, making 50, 60 cents or something like that on an option play. And then I can get into the stock and then I can relax. Why can I relax in the stock position? Because there's no theta decay, right? There's no expiration. There's no expiration in a stock position. So I can sit with that and I can manage it a little bit more comfortably. But everybody's different, right? If you are great at trading options, continue to do it. For me, it's very tough for me to be patient in a short-term option position. So that's fine. My target in this name, this was kind of like a scalp, was to the bottom of value, and it got close to there. So you could see what I did. I'm like, this is close enough, and I got 82.50 for this. So again, made money on the option position, made money on the stock position. A pretty nice looking play. Also, NVIDIA, we put that. I was waiting for an opportunity, and I was looking for NVIDIA to basically stop going down, and they report next week, and I'm kind of looking for a move into earnings. And they didn't even get down to the top of value. They basically just had a couple red days. But that's the strong names. That's sometimes all they give you. All right, so that's the chips. We also saw some calls going up, and a little bit of calls in Lam Research. I also structured a small trade in Lam Research. This is for next week's call spread, not this week. But Lam Research looks like it's going to break out here. Let's see where this thing finished. Yeah, it's pretty darn near close. So I like this little consolidation in an uptrend. Also, we saw some ADI calls, analog devices. Should be interesting. They also report next week too. So they're still in value, but it won't take much for them to climb out of value. So a lot of interesting things in the chips today. Some of the growth names kind of remains to be seen. Some acted better than others. I tried a Datadog position, and again, I've been talking about this the last couple of days. It's okay to take a shot in something, but if it doesn't do what you want it to do, like I thought on this first 5 minute bar, first 1 hour bar, that we were going to get a move inside value. There was some positive notes out in Datadog. That's okay. What's the expression? Every dog has its day. That's horrible. What I'm looking for is and I could have stayed in this position. My stop price was 75.50, but why? I don't need the risk. I need the signal to trigger, and that's going to be a move above 77.67. Remember, with this stuff, and I was explaining this as well in the Q&A session, that I'm a trend trader, and a couple books, if you want to read up about trend trading, there's a book called Trend Following by Michael Covell. Also, Turtle Traders is a great book. But I'm never going to, I'm okay with not picking the absolute bottom, and also, not selling on the absolute top, right? The goal is to make a lot of money in the middle of a trend, not picking the absolute bottom. So I think younger traders and, traders in their first couple years, they're always trying to pick the bottom, like when a stock. I don't need to do that. I'm in it for bigger moves than just trying to pick the bottom. I'm okay with waiting for a little bit of confirmation and missing the absolute bottom, right? Because we talked about that the last couple days. There's a lot of names that just kept falling rather than trying to catch a falling knife. That's not what I'll do. And if I ever do that, it's kind of on the, if I take a shot on something, it's on the small side. A couple other names that to go through, high growth names. Shop. I don't know if this move in Shop is over with. I think Shop, I would love to get this thing down at 943. That to me is a really good entry if it gets down there and if it holds. So 943 is another $50 down, and you could see it's kind of in no man's land. So again, this is a name I like. Maybe I'm being a little bit cute here, but 50 points is 50 points, and I don't know that this thing's going to stop. It certainly hasn't given you any. So it's consolidating around this level, and if it shows some momentum to it, I could buy it tomorrow, and I'll be a little bit late, but it's too iffy here for me, even though it's consolidating at this S2. Also, Fastly's another one, right? It's sitting way below value. The issue with this is this is probably going to be more of a scalp trade because it can rally, but you got resistance up here at 83 for the week, right? This is just 1 hour, and this is the value area for the week. Next week, you're going to get a different value area, so it might look a lot more appealing. So some of these things, again, I'm okay having a little bit of patience, but I like this. This seems also down to the 50-day moving average. It just might spend a few days, basically consolidating down here. So, and you hope it holds, because if it doesn't hold, then you got 64 is basically the next stop in this thing, right? Another one that I was looking at today too didn't pull the trigger. So again, a lot of looking and a lot of browsing, right? You don't have to go in and try to be a hero and buy everything the same day. But this similar setup, right? I mentioned how similar a lot of these things look, right? Docu down to the bottom of value and to the 50-day moving average. I just need to see it do something to kind of show me that it's done going down. I think even so again, 5-period moving average. Look at how well. Break here, right? Break below the 5-period. Can't reclaim it here. Didn't get close. Can't reclaim it here. Sorry, this one. Can't reclaim it here. Can't do it here. Having trouble with here, and even like the 20. Sorry, I was showing the 5 and the 20, but let's look at the 20. Let's look at the one I've got highlighted here. Break here. Can't get over it here. Not close here. Can't do it here. Can't do it here. Can't do it here. Can't do it again. But it's getting close. Like tomorrow could be the day that this thing jumps over. Maybe. And I think 195 might be a level to watch for tomorrow. What I said to a few members who brought this name up to me earlier was, if you really want to put this thing on, just use your stop as the week's low, right? For Docu. If you really think you're getting a bargain and you want to buy it here, again, I'm okay waiting a little bit, and we'll go from there. Square is another name. I started a position in this one. I'm giving this one a little bit more of a leash, in terms of. But this is also, notice that, earnings gap up. Well, it's filled this gap now, so I think it's a bit more constructive now that it's done this. Could this go down and come in here and test the bottom of value? It could, and I would be a buyer of that. So this one again, I'm scaling into and leaving myself plenty of room in case it does go a little bit lower into that support, because I think that would be a good place for this one. Let's see, any other names? I think we covered a lot. XLV. Again, people get afraid to trade the ETFs for some reason, but I like the pattern in the whole, in the whole ETF. I started a position in this one. There was a good question earlier. They said, "Hey, what's your target on the starter?" No target, because I actually want to add if it breaks out, right? It's kind of a preemptive position I started. So I don't want to take a target on a preemptive position. I want to add on the breakout, right? I know that's a different concept for some, but no target. Stop price will probably be like around 104.50. in here for the preemptive position. But again, I'm just starting something because I've got a hunch, right? And if I'm going to play a hunch, it's going to be small, and then I'll wait for my signal to add to the position. I got out of my CSX trade, last piece of it. Again, no patience over here. And I think that's it for the day. I think we covered a lot. So thanks for watching, guys. I know these videos are kind of long, but it's fun talking about this stuff. And I'll tell you, it's fun when you're in the right position to kind of start sifting through and browsing through some of these names, but you got to be in the right position to be, versatile and not get caught in a bunch of, positions, right? That's the whole name of the game, I think. And this market, the one thing that I forgot to mention yesterday was that, the Fed still has this market's back. They are going to do whatever it takes to basically make sure that the economy is running okay, and they're going to let this market continue to be speculative in nature for now. We don't know when that changes, but that's kind of like one of those things to kind of keep in the back of your mind. On the flip side, the election stuff might get a little hairy in the next. We talked about August is a tough month. It might be tough for the next couple months until this election is behind us. So you try not to be super greedy with a lot of your things, just like the AMD trade, right? Be realistic and don't be super greedy, and you'll do fine in this market. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.